By the power of these books, we shall invoke Patron! Or at least find one. We're going to talk about gods and patrons today. Dungeon Crawl Classics. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and welcome back to the Jocular Junction. Today we're talking more Dungeon Crawl Classics, and specifically we're going to be talking about deities and patrons, the differences between them, and all the different kind of cool patrons that are out there. So, in this book, this is the core rulebook. It comes in many different colors, covers, I should say. It comes in many different covers, and in it are some deities for your cleric, and there are also patrons for your wizards or elves. And a lot of them are meant to be generic, and it even encourages you, as you're reading this book, to come up with your own patrons in your campaign. And it gives you some rules and stuff and well, not really templates, but it kind of explains how to go about doing that. And I always felt sad because the patrons were so thought out, and they had spells specific to patrons, and they had all this cool stuff. You could invoke it and have your patron come and save you. And the deities didn't have any of that stuff for the cleric. Well, then this little book came along as a Kickstarter that I backed, and it is the DCC RPG Annual Volume 1. I don't know if there will be other volumes in the future, but this took many of the gods that were in the original book, and they expanded upon their powers and, just general, like, the gods can do new and cool stuff. And they added more patrons in here. So let's dive into the core rulebook. We'll go over how deities work, and we'll go over how patrons work. Jumping into the computer here, we have a PDF. This is the Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game PDF that comes with the book, if you guys are interested. I will have links down below to everything that I'm talking about here, and if you want to pick it up, Drive-Thru RPG, that's awesome. If you want to pick it up in physical format, do note that they all come with a code on the inside where you can redeem the PDF for free. It's pretty awesome. So we're going to jump straight over to Clerics, I believe. Yeah, and so here are the rules for Clerics. We're going to go down a little bit to Gods of the Eternal Struggle. These are the gods of the Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game. As far as I know, they are not part of a campaign setting. There isn't like a default world for DCC. Unless you count, I believe it's pronounced Aerith, I could be wrong, but that seems to be a Goodman Games campaign setting that they came out with before DCC was even written, and I think a lot of these deities and patrons come from that setting. However, it's purposely left open because they want the modules that they make for DCC, and they want this core rulebook to really be applicable for anything. So these are generic gods, and you're encouraged to create new ones and patrons and all this other stuff, and I think they can be like mix and matched. So if you want Shoal, the god of the moon, to be a patron instead of a deity, then you could write up patrony stuff for it and it would work like a patron, or you can keep it the way it is and it works like a deity. So Clerics, I always felt, got the short end of the stick because patrons for wizards have all these really cool things, and you get the patron asks you to do stuff, and you're able to like go on quests, and it's just like the whole game really feels like it kind of revolves around wizards. And I like Clerics a lot, and I was although excited to play a wizard, I was kind of sad that, like, well, Clerics kind of they don't get anything that fantastic. If you are a cleric, then you can worship one of these gods, and what that does is determines your unholy creatures, which I believe affects your turn undead, and what weapons you can use and you're like proficient with. So the lawful ones, you're going to have club, mace, and sling, and a staff, and your unholy creatures are demons and devils, basically chaotic creatures. If you're neutral, you can use a dagger, a mace, a sword, and undead, demons, and lycanthropes and stuff are your unholy creatures. And then chaos is the hidden lord and all these interesting chaotic things. You can use an axe, a bow, a dagger, a dart, or a flail. And your unholy creatures are paladins and angels and dragons, lawful dragons, and just like lawful things that, you know, you want. And that's it. This is all the information that is in the original core rulebook about deities. And it kind of made me a little sad because as we'll see a little bit later, there is lots of information on patrons. However, the DCC annual core rulebook came out. This book came out and really expanded upon what clerics could do. And I thought this was a lot of fun. So we're going to finish talking about clerics before we dive into patrons with wizards by jumping into the expanded clerical abilities that you can get. Some really cool art. And then here we are. So Cadicstat, if we go over to the core rulebook, Cadicstat, the Chaos Titan, is a chaotic god that your cleric can worship. Going back over here, this gave him some more information and some backstory and stuff like that, which is kind of fun. You get special traits, so your lay on hands, your healing looks different than if you are if you're a cleric of another god. There are divine favors. So once a day, you may attune to the rippling chaotic emanations of the legendary artifact, the Axe of Unmaking, and increase his or her attack die by 1d for 1d6 rounds. So you can help out your friends. There's another one called Heart of Chaos, which I thought was really cool. And then specific disapproval tables custom to this deity, which makes it kind of fun if you have more than one cleric in there. So if you roll a natural 1, and I'm sorry, my mouse is all over the place. If you roll a natural 1, then you roll on this disapproval table, but this is a special table just for that deity, which I thought was really cool. The final thing about deities in the DCC annual is they have canticles. So this is the canticles of Cadicstat, and at level 1, your cleric gets Metamorphosis. At level 3, they get Tattered Veil of Chance, and at level 5, they get Hand of Chaos. And these are basically spells. They're not, they have spell checks and you roll checks to see if something happens with them, but they're kind of like Invoke Patron for wizards. And I really like this. I thought this was a lot of fun. So yeah, with Hand of Chaos, we'll just read the level 5 ability here. Allows the cleric of Cadicstat to summon one of many possible manifestations of the severed right hand of the Sundered Lord. Imbued with chaotic energies, the hand is a formidable, unpredictable weapon. To summon the Hand of Chaos, the cleric must bury a severed right hand in the dirt and chant prayers to Cadicstat for 1 full turn. Anytime, and a turn is 10 minutes, I believe. Anytime for the rest of the day, the cleric may roll a spell check as an action to see what emerges from the spot at which the severed hand was buried. The spell check is modified by the type of right hand buried as part of the ritual. If the type of hand does not match below, the judge should determine the closest equivalent. So a chaos-aligned human, you get an extra plus 1d on the dice chain to roll for this. And some cool stuff can happen, but you gotta roll like a 20 or 23. You get a human-sized hand with 6-finger digits, comes back to the surface, and is under the command of the cleric. And then we jump a little further to a 30 plus, erupting from the ground the size of a small cabin. This hand is a larger version of the hand described above, well, let's read the one above. So jumping ahead to 28 or 29, erupting from the ground the size of a covered wagon, the hand darts quickly towards the cleric like a panicked spider before following the commands of its summoner. The palm of this huge hand features a gaping mouth with gnarled teeth, and each finger is distinct. The index finger is coated with putrescent slime. The middle finger's nail is long and curved like that of a scimitar. The ring finger wears a giant ring, and the tip of the finger has sprouted a half-dozen small hands of its own, and the little finger throbs with bloody veins. This hand behaves as a ferocious creature under the control of the cleric. It is called the Lesser Hand of Cadicstat. And then there's stats for it, and it can do, looks like it can do spider climb and invisibility. It's pretty cool. So that's what I liked about this. And so here's another one, Danathar, and if we go over here, I think Danathar is on here. Maybe this was a new one. Yeah, this is a lawful god. So this is the Mountain Lord, greater god of earth and industry. So this is the god of kind of the forge and stuff, and reading through this, it looks like you can use your special powers to repair animated objects and constructs. You are favored to heal dwarves, so they're easier to heal if you guys are out of lawful chaotic alignments. Spending 10 minutes with the appropriate tools, a cleric of Danathar may attempt a lay on hands check to repair any mechanical device. Super fun. And then you can use your turn on Holy to get rid of golems and constructs and clockwork stuff. So that's really cool. And then again, the same disapproval that we saw before. And then Canticles of Danathar. The Song of Stone, you get +2 AC bonus, but if you roll a 26 plus, you get a +6 bonus to AC until the next dawn. Any damage the cleric takes is reduced by 5 points. Like, you can do some really cool stuff. And then, yeah, it says here, normally only humans can become clerics, but Danathar is the creator god of the dwarves and allows them his faithful. The judge may rule that the dwarven priests of Danathar are NPCs only, using the stat blocks below, but if the judge desires, lawful dwarves may choose to become clerics of Danathar upon reaching first level. In this case, the dwarf retains the racial statistics possessed at level 0 as a 0 level character, but gains no further dwarf class abilities. The Hidden Lord, I'm not going to go over these. So there's a lot of these. I'm not going to go over them because I do want to talk about patrons, but I liked the idea. We went from just a simple, like, here are some gods to here are all kinds of cool stuff that gods can do. So the Hidden Lord, Justicia, which is one that I really like. It's kind of like a paladin, if I remember correctly. Molotok, I had a friend who played a cleric in one of the games that I've ran for Dungeon Crawl Classics, and he was a cleric of Molotok and had so much fun as we would summon all kinds of murder crows to take out all sorts of stuff. It was crazy. Plagia, Shoal. So here's Shoal again. This is the god of the moon. So now we're going to jump back over to the core rulebook, and here it's kind of confusing, and I was a little confused when I first picked up Dungeon Crawl Classics about wizards and Patron Bond. So if you learn Patron Bond as a spell, then you can find a extra planar, like a demon or a devil or even a god, and make a bargain with them. And instead of being a devout worshiper, you're in it for yourself and you're in it for power. But the god or the deity in this instance might not necessarily be like against that, because if you're going to further their goals, then they'll give you a little bit of power here and there. So patrons are different in the sense that if I'm a cleric, I'm very devout to that god, and we have similar goals in mind because that is why I worship him. But if you are doing this as a patron, it's totally like, hey, I found you're a really strong being. I would like to be able to spit fire. And the guy's like, I'll let you spit fire, but you need to go save this orphanage or something. And so the spell Patron Bond, once you know of these extra-worldly creatures, you can use this spell, which is a week-long ritual, basically, to talk to that deity and create a bargain. And so I was a little confused when I first did this, but once you learn Patron Bond and you have cast this successfully with a patron of your choice, then you also learn a new spell called Invoke Patron, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now, the interesting thing about this is you cast this and it takes a week. So this is really like an out-of-game downtime kind of activity. But when you cast this, the higher level you get, the more powerful your Invoke Patron spell will be. So it behooves you, I think, to do some spell burn with this, because you're going to cast it once, and then that's going to stick with you for quite a while, and unless you decide to change patrons or something to that effect. Specifically, which I don't know if you could have more than one patron. I bet there's a rule about that. You probably can't. Or if you do, you're the judge and you're going to be really like, you got two people that don't want you doing this. So the very lowest you do, if you do a 12 or 12 to 13, you get the spell Invoke Patron, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you go all the way to, 32, you're going to be able to use Invoke Patron 4 times a day. Sometimes you can only use it once a day. Sometimes you can only use it once a week. But you're going to be able to use it 4 times a day, and you get a +2 bonus to the spell check, and the patron also grants you a spell that is unique to that patron. And this is where I was saying that wizards have lots of extra cool abilities because of this. Not only do you get Invoke Patron, but if you roll high enough, you also get extra abilities, which we didn't see until the DCC Annual for Clerics. So it behooves you to roll high. And I believe you could also, I would allow my players to probably do this over if they had the downtime to try and get a higher score. Because definitely when they level up, it's going to be a lot easier for them to hit these 30s to get actual cool stuff. The other fun thing you can do is you can cast it on another person. So if you're trying to indoctrinate other people into working for this patron as well, then you can cast this week-long ritual on somebody else. And there are a whole table to the right here that is for casting it on another. And so this is Invoke Patron, the spell. And if you look at this, a lot of this is just, duration varies, casting time, 1 round, but might be something else. It's all about Patron Bond. Like, you have to roll that first. And it says in order to learn the spell, you have to first cast Patron Bond, and that defines how this spell is going to work for your wizard. So all of these are really like per judge, because we don't know until we know what patron we're going to have and what kind of how sturdy of a relationship we have with our patron. And then it talks here a little bit about patron taint, that if you do make a pact with an extraplanar being, that your regular magic might change because really all of your magic is being augmented by that patron. So Azidahaka is a kind of a deserty sand demon, I'm assuming. But it says here, like, oh, if you start casting Magic Missile after you've made that patron connection, maybe your Magic Missile actually, there's little puffs of sand that go along with it or something. And so little things like that, that's complete flavor for the player and the dungeon master, for the judge, but super fun for at the table, I think, because you're just like, wait, what's happening? Why doesn't it look like this? It's always looked like this. Like, the flames from my hand have always been red, and it's like, well, now they're green. You know why? Because you talked to that slime monster over there. So, pretty cool. So here's some of them, and I'm gonna mispronounce all of these because I'm real bad at this, but Bobug Bubbles is a demon lord of amphibians. He's kind of like a large frog, and my personal favorite. Cesricon the Elder is a wicked sorcerer that's probably immortal. Azidahaka is the demon lord of storms and waste. The king of Elfland is really good for the elves because it's one of those. The three fates, they control the fate of all men. And then there were some extra patrons down here that they did not give the full treatment to. And so this is like, you're encouraged to use these, but also expand upon them. Like, how do you want the spells to look like? Or what do you want them to do? So a lot of like making the game your own and writing for it, which I think a lot of dungeon masters who buy this get excited about doing that. And I keep saying dungeon masters, but I mean judges, and I'm gonna have a bunch of DCC fans with pitchforks come and get me. So creating your own patrons, and then there's some stuff here with how to create a patron for yourself. So let's talk about the patrons. These spells are pretty powerful, and that is because you have to go through a lot of hoops to get these Invoke Patron spells. And we're going to check out Bub Ills. When you cast Invoke Patron, which might be a week-long spell for you, you might be able to do it 4 times a day. It's all depending on that Invoke Patron spell, or that Patron Bond spell that we cast earlier. But if you do it 12 to 13, the amphibian god is preoccupied, and the ground oozes muck, and rain falls from the sky. And there's like toad things that kind of whatever, and you get plus 1d6 strength for the next hour. And you're like, okay. But a little higher, we get frogs. So Bub Ills, he sends a devil frog, which is in this book, and it arrives in 1d4 rounds. And I like that, where it's just like, I'm going to help you, but not just yet. Once it pops up, it obeys your commands and runs around. But you have to do a DC 20 spell check every hour or it leaves, which is cool. And you can ride it as a mount. This is why I love this. I want a big frog mount. That's so cool. The next one is a salamander. You basically keep summoning really cool stuff. But a 32 plus, he sends an avatar and also imbues the caster with supernatural, let me zoom in on this once more. Here we go. Imbues the caster with supernatural burst of toad strength. The caster gains a +6 bonus to strength as long as the avatar remains present. The avatar is a dark-skinned monstrous toad covered in boils, and it drops above to attack the enemy's casters. It remains for 2d6 rounds, during which time it fights ferociously. Then on top of this, if I was and here's the taint. So let's see, we roll real bad, and let's say we rolled a 5, okay? So let's zoom in here. Whenever I need to go further than that. There we go. Whenever the caster casts a spell, his legs extend and change their joint structure. They look deformed, and the caster must then move in short hops for a period of 1d4 rounds, at which point his legs return to normal. If a spell effect interacts with his legs, the spell effect takes precedent. If this result is rolled a second time, the transformation is more complete, such that the caster's legs truly resemble frog legs for 1d4 turns, which is 10 minutes. He does not gain any extraordinary leaping abilities, but must move in hops rather than steps, which looks strange. If this result is rolled a third time, the caster's legs permanently change into frog's legs. He gains the ability to leap his full movement speed in a single hop, which is really cool. So I like this. These are the patron taints, and you're not coming back from that. You're gonna look really, really weird. And then going over here, these are the 3 spells. This is the level 1 spell, which is Tadpole Transformation, which you can get gills and a bunch of other cool stuff. You can swim around. It's a fun spell. And then Glorious Mire, which creates a big swampland for you, which kind of changes the thing. Changes the ground underneath you. And then level 3, what's this? Oh, that was a level 2 spell. Level 3 spell is Bottom Feeder Bond. And it says that Bobug Bub Ills holds court on a distant plain populated by endless horizons of swampland. In this place, he is lord of all amphibians, as well as many other swamp dwellers, including crocodiles, catfish, venomous snakes, and biting flies. The spell reinforces the caster's bond to Bobug Bilb Ills in the eyes of his mortal followers, and with such a bond, the caster gains some degree of control over such creatures. So yeah, it looks like you can, non-threatening reptilian amphibians and stuff, you can control them with this spell, which is kind of cool. This is my favorite art. I love this so much. This guy, this frog, and he's worshiping, it is so cool. We have Azid Dahaka, who is wastelands and deserts and snakes, so that's him in the corner there. And then he's got spells. We have Sezrakon, very popular, the 7-pointed star of Sezrakon, I believe. And this is a evil wizard that is so powerful. And so he's giving out spells at this point. Phylactery of the Soul, super cool. The King of Elfland is your generic elf one, but I would let my elf take any patron. I don't think elves get patron bond by default, so it's kind of assumed that they're following somebody. You can do Forest Walk or the Dreaming and the 3 Fates. I really like these. I want to incorporate them into all of my games because I like the idea of the Fates. Yeah, so this is kind of fun for a wizard because I think you create a Blade of Power. So Blade of Atropos, I'm going to say Atropos, is casting the spell requires a non-magical sword, but it has to be super wealthy, worth no less than 1,000 gold pieces. And the caster receives a +2 bonus to his spell check if the blade is decorated. You get a +2 bonus. That's good. If the blade leaves the caster's hand, the spell immediately ends. Strength modifiers, positive or negative, have no effect on the caster's to hit roll or damage rolls while wielding the blade. So I get this fancy blade, and a 12 to 13 is attacks with the empowered blade are at a +1 to hit, +3 versus chaos creatures, and inflict 1d12 plus caster level and damage. That's really exciting. Well, apparently at 20, a second blade appears in the air that fights for you. So all the way to 32 plus, 2 additional blades appear in the air, mirroring the first. The caster can direct the blades attack targets within sight, while he fights with the enchanted blade in his hand. Oh, so while I'm fighting with this blade in my hand, my other swords hovering around me can go attack other stuff. No concentration is required to direct the additional blades. Attack with the blades are at a +7 to hit, +9 versus chaos creatures or corrupted casters, and inflict 2d16 plus caster level and damage. Chaos creatures or corrupted casters struck by the blades must make a will save or be immediately and permanently struck dead. The spell lasts for 1d16 plus CL rounds. Very, very cool spell. But if we go back to our DCC annual, we can see over here under Judge's Rules, Dizhali, I like this one too. Patron spells are Detect Deception, Inflict Anguish, and Exorite Energy. Heck and Hoda, the Lord of Grotesques, the Viscount of Corruption, the Caliph of the Unclean, Duke of Deformities, and Avatar of Afflictions. This looks like exactly who you want to take care of. Yeah, you want to totally walk around with this guy. So let's see. Invoke Patron results are the caster grasps that a seed of contempt lives in the hearts of all mortals. Nurturing this seed causes it to grow into malignancy in the body. The caster can select one visible target creature within 240 feet and cause a huge tumor to grow impossibly fast inside the target's body. The growth of this tumor has the effect of an immediate critical hit. The caster rolls 1d8 plus 16 on crit table 2 to determine if the effect of the hit targets make saves against the effect of this hit using a die 2 steps up on the dice chain. For example, they roll a d30 if they would normally roll a d20. The Horned King, another good one for elves maybe. And here, we talked about it earlier, the Obitu-Q. This one was in the original as a patron, the core rulebook, but here they've expanded upon it and given some cool spells and stuff that you can use. So ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of patrons and things like that? I love this a lot. And I don't mean to compare Dungeon Crawl Classics to 5th edition D&D, but these are two games that I have played the most probably. And it's interesting because there's all these different demons and stuff in Dungeons and Dragons. And you can have the Fey Pact and these other pacts, but this one really feels like you're making a dangerous bargain. Whereas every warlock that I have played with or played myself, it's never felt like, it always was in my favor. I got a lot of power and I did nothing, if rarely anything, for my patron. And maybe that's just the fault of me as a dungeon master and the games that I've played in where that was never utilized. But this is something that I really enjoy, that there's a way for me to hurt my players with patron taints or corruptions or something if they're not going along with the plan. And if they are smart enough to, and that's a complication. And then if they're smart enough to figure that out and go along in a different direction, then so be it. Like, that's awesome. That's the game, you know? You're coming up with new stuff. So how do you guys feel about patrons and deities in Dungeon Crawl Classics? Let me know in the comments below. I will be making more videos. Maybe I'll record another one tonight. Who knows? In the future, we're going to talk about magic items and different spells and summoning familiars and stuff like that. And then we're going to talk about campaign settings, starting with Peril of the Purple Planet and going from there. If you guys are watching this in real time, there is a Kickstarter going on right now. This is not sponsored or affiliated in any way, but if you are interested in the Dungeon Crawl Classics Dying Earth campaign setting, they are doing a Kickstarter right now. It is already funded and doing a lot of really cool stretch goals. So I'll put a link down below to that. If you want to help out the channel, I do have a Patreon, and honestly, just share a video with a friend because I'm trying to get to 4,000 hours of watch time, which will be a lot of fun to help the channel grow and keep it going. So subscribe, like, share, be awesome, and play more Dungeon Crawl Classics.